at 9 o'clock. And to start with our traditional land acknowledgement is that we acknowledge and respect the Indigenous peoples within whose traditional lands we are meeting today. And can I have a motion from the floor for freedom of the floor for our Nelson Regional Sports Council?
So moved.
Moved and seconded, moved by Newell, seconded by Schmidtke, and I had skipped over, we were asked to do a roll call. Tom?
Present.
Josh? Present. Kate? Who's present, and Chair Page is present. We don't have Director Morrison, and Cheryl's got her alternate here.
Looks like Kate's frozen. No, she's not. No?
There are technology issues in this room. She is not frozen behind you.
Oh, okay.
There's sometimes it's the other way.
Okay. I think we're outside.
Yeah. Can I have, so we have the minutes before us. We've had a chance to review them. Are there any amendments, updates, comments to the minutes? If those have been received, and then we are welcomed today by Eleanor Stacy from the Nelson Civic Theatre Society, and she will present an update on the Society's programs, facilities, and services for this commission. Thank you very much for coming and meeting with us today, Eleanor, and take it away.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited to be here. Oh, there's my presentation. That's awesome. Okay, so yeah, thanks for inviting me to present today. He said, my name is Eleanor Stacy. I'm the Executive Director of Nelson Civic Theatre Society, NCTS. We've been a tenant of the Civic Center since 2012. But as Joe Chirico pointed out to me recently, we've actually never presented to the Rec Commission. I don't know how I've never been here to talk to you. So thank you so much, Joe, for pointing that out. I'm really pleased to have a chance to update you all on what NCTS does and what our plans are for the future. So if we can just go to the next slide, I wanted to just start with structure. I promise you this won't be a class on social enterprise. But I know that most of the user groups in the Civic Center campus are associations or clubs, and we are neither. Don't worry, you don't need to read the small print here. It's really just the top lines there. So first, I just want to talk briefly about our current structure. So back in 2012, when we first were formed, NCTS was formed with a very specific social enterprise goal. The theater would become a 3-screen venue and then make enough to be self-funding and also give back to the community in the style of a social enterprise. And a social enterprise, if you're not familiar with it too much, it's really simple in principle. It just uses commercial strategies to support social goals within business. But because the organization also needed to generate income to get going and would not be able to divide the theater space until the money to do so was raised, it quickly became apparent the best way to do that would be to become a BC nonprofit society, which they did in the same year. And the difference between social enterprise businesses and nonprofit societies is really the source of their funding a lot of the time. And so in 2016, we became a registered Canadian charity. We did this for a few reasons. First, we couldn't offer travel receipts without it. And it was a service that in the first year or two of NCTS, the City of Nelson supported, but that wasn't available to us any longer. And second, because we knew that in order to apply for more grants, and especially larger capital ones, being a nonprofit wouldn't be enough to satisfy eligibility requirements. It's the same reason why we get a proper audit every year, because there's grants we can't apply for without it. We were concerned as a movie theater that we'd have trouble getting the status, but we got it on the first try and very quickly. And if you go to the next slide, I can tell you why. So our charitable purposes, again, I'm not going to read through all of these, but they're tied to some very specific things. Most notably, our status is completely interconnected with our facility. And as you can see in the fourth bullet point here, we exist to protect, preserve, and improve the Nelson Civic Theatre. But the first two also speak to that and the specific use of our facility, which must be used as an amenity for the arts, primarily film, but also other kinds of live events and a wide array of educational activities. We are so completely connected with the Civic Theatre, and that's just a really important point. That's our entire status. However, of course, in order to get our charitable status, we also needed to show charitable programming. So there was a little bit of chicken and egg, cart horse kind of thing with a lot of what we've had to do in the early years. To be clear, showing films is central to what we do as a charity. And even our regular schedule fulfills that first obligation. But in the years between our founding and our charitable status, we endeavored to just be bursting at the seams with community events. And after we became a charity, we continued to need to prove ourselves to funders, as there are very few cinema primary organizations that are charities in Canada, and far fewer than there are live theater organizations, even though arguably we're really similar. We really fought this for quite a long time. I would call the funder and say, hey, I'm from Nelson Civic Theatre Society. They'd look at our website and they'd say, all I see is a movie theater, which kind of shows that bias just based on what you're showing. And that's a much bigger conversation about content in the arts, but I'll come back another time. So, our eye, of course, has always been on the larger capital funding, but to do that, we also needed to grow into this multifaceted entity. And so I want to show you a little bit today about who we are, just by introducing to you what we do. And I'll be really curious at the end of this as to whether or not there are things here you didn't know about. I'd love you to think about that, please. We can go to the next one, please. So what we do, as you all know, we show movies in the Civic Theatre, usually, as we're closed right now. During the pandemic, and due to some really specific conditions, we also opened the Shoebox Theatre, which is a 20-seat theatre in our second leasehold at 225 Hall Street, the old Chamber of Commerce building. And finally, just last weekend, thanks to enormous generosity from Tony Maglio, Chinook Scaffolding, Foodie Container Company, and a bunch of other companies that just jumped in to make it happen. We have just opened the Civic in Railtown Drive-In, which is that central picture in the middle there. That's actually our drive-in, not some stock picture. We're planning on opening this, operating it until the end of September. We've done this because of the extended closure at the Civic Theatre for the roof to be repaired. And we're hoping it does the trick, as we've lost about 80% of our income. So it really has been a big loss for us from an operating standpoint. As worth noting, in a typical year at the Civic Theatre, we sell 35,000 tickets. And we also see another 7,000 to 10,000 people through our doors for other events like rentals, but also a bunch of the next set of things that we do. So if we can go to the next slide, please. So one of the other things we do, and I wonder maybe if we could just move the little box up at the top, because it's going to overlap with just the title for each of these slides. Does that make sense? Just the little black box there?
It's just hard getting over there.
Yeah, I got you. We can just move it maybe down to the bottom. The bottom, like the bottom middle. Okay, so one of our very favorite things to do is what we call eventized screenings. These are commercial films that have something specifically playful about them that lends them to a party environment. And here you see Lucas Myers in a really early Despicable Me film where we commissioned him to develop a new super evil bad guy, which he featured on stage. Everyone at that event's dressed up like super evil bad guys and minions and had a great time. More recently, some of these other events have happened, like we had a chalk graffiti party. It was chalk graffiti, let's be clear, on the Civic Center steps for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. We had a Mario Kart competition that was vicious, but fun. And of course, I'm sure you all saw parts of our Barbie run as the line outside was there for weeks. One wonderful thing about our community is, an eccentric thing is, people here love to dress up in costume, and it doesn't matter what we do. We put on a costume event and everybody shows up like a pirate or whatever it is you want them to do. It's really always a hit. So next slide. We do a lot of things, so I'm gonna move through these. So Rio's Video, during the pandemic, we bought Rio's Video as the business was going to disappear because of prolonged closure and a loss of their leasehold. It is simply the worst business decision I have ever made to purchase Rio's Video, but I'm also really glad we did it because if we had not, Nelson would have lost this unique cultural collection that's been in our community for more than 35 years. And it actually is really unique. We have more than 16,000 titles, which is more than any streaming service, I might add. And many films that you actually can't find anywhere. And actually, now that I think of it, one of these days I may come back and talk to you guys about feasibility surrounding actually doing stock here and getting a curator, because some of the films we've learned are things you can't buy anywhere. So knowing which ones those are and finding a way to preserve them actually is. We don't have VHS anymore. I get that question all the time. There are VHS videos there. But we still run into potential library users who don't have a DVD or Blu-ray player, so we have a couple of those to lend. Most exciting though is the fact that we've made Rios into a membership benefit. So that means that for only $20 a year, you can access the whole collection for free. And Rios actually remains important in our rural community for a really specific reason, which is that there are people with poor internet connections or no internet connections in rural spaces. In fact, right now I am one of them because I have old Shaw lines in to my house on Taylor Drive. I've been trying to get them fixed for more than a year. I actually bring home videos because we don't always have the internet. I've been hotspotting for work often. So it actually is an important fixture in a community like ours that does have these funny little pockets with no internet. And Rios is also at 225 Hall where the shoebox is, and we also rent out the shoebox frequently for people to have private events and parties pulling from the Rios collection. So so I guess if I had one sort of bug in your ear, if you know of anywhere we might be able to get collections funding or library funding, because we're not a library, so there's a whole thing there, I'd be grateful. So if you can think of anything, if you come across anything. Let's go to the next slide. So our all age signature programming includes Home for the Holidays, which offers free family films and an on-screen cartoon drawing lesson. It's actually my brother-in-law who's up there giving a free lesson this time. Visit from Santa and free mini popcorns for anybody who brings in a food bank donation. We've been doing this for a decade. It's a fabulous event. I have kids come, parents come, grandparents come. We show a couple of films. It's a great day. We also produce Nelson's Zombie Walk with free makeup. We do an all ages New Year's Eve pajama party, complete with free bubbly apple juice at midnight, which parents know is 9 p.m. New York time, and they love that. We do an Oscar party with a red carpet photo wall and karaoke on the commercial breaks, which has become increasingly popular. And these events, again, they're just really fun and they're great for patrons of all ages. It's not just for children, we see lots of adults coming without kids a lot of the time too. Next slide. NCTS has a commitment to youth. First through our concession and box office roles and through programming. We've always contended that first jobs are like first boyfriends or first girlfriends, and they really set the tone for how you expect to be treated in a workplace. So it's really important to us to give them a really good experience and one where they have to work hard, which is actually, believe it or not, an important factor in a job. I know. We've employed over 100 youth since 2012. We also run a summer sketch camp, which teaches teen storyboarding and animation techniques. My daughter loves this and calls it Theater Camp for Introverts. We have this amazing long-standing Super 8 program, which puts actual vintage Super 8 cameras in the hands of youth and allows them to physically develop their one-shot in-camera films with vitamin C powder and instant coffee. They see their creations for the very first time on the big screen. And one participant a few years ago, we've all laughed about this ever since, but it's awesome, said very famously, I didn't realize it was like film when they talked about film. And it was because it made us realize there's a whole generation that doesn't understand what they hear in their pocket and where it comes from and what basis of it is. But like, talk about who's learning from who, right? Next slide. We have been committed to screening Indigenous stories for a number of years. It goes back actually quite a long time, but it was only last year that this interest culminated in the Studis Indigenous Film Festival. And for any of you who don't know what Studis is, it's Indigenous slang for let's do this. I know it's not obvious all the time, but I just wanted to say that loud. This event is Indigenous led. It features a full week of really varied film content by Indigenous filmmakers. And this year, because of our facility closure, we've delayed it until the fall and expect to hold at least a portion of it in Dryden. That's our hope. Last year's festival focused on the history of Indigenous people in film and normalizing indigeneity in our community, which is a whole other topic. But this year's festival also will highlight Indigenous films and stories from around the world. Seeing as indigeneity is everywhere, right? Everybody's from somewhere. A major signature program, next slide, if you don't mind, is the Kootenay Screen-Based Industry Workers Program. We call it KSBI for short. That's really catchy. I'm joking, it's not catchy. We developed this in response to local filmmakers voicing specific needs for networking, for professional development, and for festival events. And we started the program in 2016, and since then we've attracted a Facebook group of more than 550 people. A lot of them live here, some of them are from here and would like to work here. We're interested in supporting local industries. It's a really interesting community of people. In addition to that, we have presented a wide array of meetups, events, workshops, and master classes. Most recently, one of them has been about breaking the celluloid ceiling, which is about women in film, because there's a difference for women in film, and that's, again, a much larger conversation. I've been here for a whole week. Anyway, so the KSBI was also a key part of our co-founding the Kootenay Regional Film Commission, which NCTS governs through an MOU with Kootenay Rockies Tourism in Kimberley. And we're under a contract with BC, like all the other commissions in the province. We knew that in order to have a successful new commission, we'd need an East Kootenay partner. And KRT's been a really great partner. And now, just a few years in, because we started this in 2021, we're in the process of restructuring of the commission because our region is so rural and so geographically big by comparison to our population. So the thing we're considering now is the possibility of a commissioner who's sort of a nexus, and then regionally based production managers, so we can meet all the various needs of the community that we intend to serve. And anyway, since our founding in 2021, it's added a whole bunch of locations to the provincial Real Scout files. So they keep like a big catalog of potential locations. So we have a lot more now than we used to. We've developed a little film list of over 140 people who are accredited basically to work on the larger films. Again, another deeper topic. And we're also supporting a lot of film work for productions that have happened in the region. In the next few years, we're hoping to see more training opportunities for local film professionals. We've been talking with Suffolk College about that and the College of the Rockies for quite a long time. And if they can become accredited, we can have more local people working on these bigger projects. I will say, I can't tell you anything about it, there's a very big project that is coming to this region in the next year. And this is also like this training piece is a really great example of how the KSBI and the commission work together in a unique way. Other commissions don't have a screen-based industry workers program. So it's really been unique and interesting for us to work together.
I don't know, just do you think that, not that we can say anything really about it, but do you think that has anything to do with one of our regional parks being identified as? Possibly. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, it's a big project. Everyone will know, and it won't even be surprising to be like, oh, that's what Eleanor was talking about.
Right.
I also just put up CBCB up here. It's the Craft Brews of the Columbia Basin Film Competition. This has actually been on hiatus since the pandemic, just because it's just been too much for our capacity. But it's a love of Jason Aspels, our program director, and it will definitely be coming back. It's an absolutely ridiculous competition where we pair filmmakers with breweries in the region, and then they make films that maybe are advertisements, maybe they're spoofs, and they're completely ridiculous. And they all compete for the Golden Ski Pole. That's our thing, and some cash prize. So we'll be bringing that back as well.
Are you gonna combine that with the Thursday socials down at the chamber and do like a whole big shebang at the end of the year?
You know what? Actually, as you say that, we probably do that at the drive-in at the end of the year. Thanks, Keith. I'll talk about it later. All right, let's go to the next slide. So, and I promise there's not a whole lot more of these, but I just really wanted to give you a real, a quick tour. One of the most lovely things we've done in the last couple of years is we've started to do these up close at the civic events. They aren't actually our first live events. We've had large scale live events, mostly through rentals. Like there was an ABBA, tribute band at some point. We've shown things like we've had the Bahamas perform there, Great Lakes Swimmers, there have been some other big name bands that come through. We are an exceptional space for electronically supported music, like if music's plugged in. You can mix in surround sound in live concerts if you have the right time. But this has been really beautiful. These up close at the civic events, we put the artists center stage and put the audience on the stage with them and create like, we were sort of thinking about like the NPR Tiny Desk concerts, but they just turned into the most elegant and beautiful events. And so when we reopen, we'll do more of these again. But we are a great space for live. It isn't central to our mission, but as you saw in the purposes, it is actually not. So not our central goal, but something we do. Go to the next one. And then something you may or may not know about is we actually have an artist residency, and all 10 of these people have been or are currently residents within the NCPS residency. Our program is really like no other that I've found. It's intentionally non-extractive. So what this means is we ask nothing of our residents. They don't need to write anything. They don't need to perform anything. They don't need to update us on anything. They don't need to report. And so you sort of might go, well, what are they doing? You know, what we've said to them is we'd like to give you space and time and cohort relationship with the other residents to examine and answer a question in your creative process. So the whole thing is process oriented. The example I love to give is I have a friend who I think should write a book, and I keep asking her, why don't you like get a residency? And you know, she said, well, I don't know if I want to write a book. And I said, well, why don't you make that your question? You could spend a year asking, should I write a book? That would be fine. You'll be in the, you know, in the company of people who are also asking similar, you know, deep dive questions. But, you know, art isn't always fast. And this residency has been a really wonderful way for us to be able to support artists in our community. Some of these artists have had incredible results come from the residencies. I mean, you see Pat Hinman there, Zina Mohammed, Sheena Jones, Sarah, we're all 4 of them in our first residency program have done some really extraordinary things like the Black and Gold Project and the Everson Staircase Project with Zina Zan. And of course, we all know Pat's book and her tour and her show that's gone with that. So the current cohort is also doing beautiful things. So I'm sure we'll see some there comes soon. And finally, last one here, our community outreach. So this is a difficult activity to fully describe because it's so diverse. We've offered introductory tickets to people who have come to our community as refugees from other countries, just to have an outing as a family. We have done welcome screenings for international schools through Silver College, although I'm sad that they didn't all want to see Roxanne. Sorry, that's what we tried. They're like, why would we want to see this movie? Like, that's part of the problem. So we create barrier-free events for specific equity-deserving groups. We did a really beautiful screening with Big Place, the Down syndrome artist who is a filmmaker. And that was just a lovely event to be able to hold to really highlight Down syndrome artists making film. We also give away a lot of tickets, a lot of popcorn and free shoebox screenings for community events when we get asked for fundraising. All of our team members also are really engaged. I think all of us are involved in different kinds of community endeavors. Some of us sit on boards and committees locally, provincially, and nationally. We have an effect on policies in our sector and beyond. And then finally, our volunteer program engages over 100 people ranging from youth to seniors. We actually have more and more youth joining us. It used to be more seniors. They're all part of the face of our organization. They're in our lobby. They'll be at the drive-in in the summer, and they'll be in the summer markets helping us as well. And it really does take a village to keep this organization moving forward. So the final slide, the next one, is the building. I know it's the big question, right? So these are all the things that we do. I think that they substantiate why it is that we still need to undertake our renovations at the Civic Theatre, which is literally our oldest strategic plan item since the founding goal. We still plan to divide the theatre into 3 screening rooms, including keeping the original stage. We have a really simple business case for this. So we know statistically from research from art house theaters across Canada and the United States that when a single screen adds a second one, they double their income. And when they add another one, they add that income again. So what that means is that conceivably, based on that statistical knowledge, we could see our average gross income through box office concession sales go from $450,000 a year to 1.3 million. And this is money that in the future can be reinvested in local jobs, into local arts and artists, community accessibility and cultural experiences, and economic opportunities. And we keep it here. You know, a lot of this money leaves town, goes to Spokane to see something in IMAX, just goes, you know, to nearby other communities that have movie theaters too. It's worth us being able to have that, and that of course doesn't even speak to going out for dinner beforehand or before after. So Of this, we've raised 3.5 million of the 4.2 million that is needed for this original project. We also have a $1 million letter of credit thanks to the city of Nelson, and which, if all goes as planned, will help us cash flow the project. But we're trying to have fully repaid by the time the theater reopens, and we're just working on our fundraising plans right now to do that. And I've got a couple of different that we're working on to see how we get there. That said, the cost of the project has gone up substantially since the majority of the current funding was secured. And so we're in a place right now where we're preparing to limit scope until we can raise more to finish the whole thing. And that may mean that we install 2 of our theaters and hopefully upgrade our lobby, but we may not upgrade the original theater just yet, but we'll be able to reopen. So like, there's a lot of different ways that we might be able to do this. And it's really like all on the table right now with our designers. Yeah, and of course, there's always the question of timelines, right? So as you all likely know, the city is in the process of repairing the Civic Center roof. This isn't a project that we can overlap with at this point because it's not safe for anybody to be in the building while that's happening. We also don't know exactly when that will be. So we know that the goal is for the roof to be finished by October, but we don't know when we're going to be able to start. And so, we've kind of asked 18 different ways. Well, if you start this end, if you go over there and we'll start over here, we don't know. We just don't know. So when we know those things, we'll have a better sense as to how we are going to get started and how long it's going to take before we can reopen. It's worth noting that, as a result of all of these things, this is a really precarious time for NCTS. And I'm not about to ask you for anything. Doesn't know what you're allowed to give. That's not what I'm here for. I just wanted to come for this kind of purpose, let you know what's going on. But pandemic was really hard on us. And we were mandated closed for a really long time. In British Columbia, theaters were closed as long as like nightclubs, maybe longer, actually. We really had a tough time, but we had wage subsidies. We had some significant grants during that time to help us through. None of those vehicles are available to us at this time. All that money is gone. So with the writer and actors strikes and then poor content coming out of Hollywood and sort of it's been hit and miss and feast and famine for us since 2022. And because we emerged from the pandemic, we don't have reserves. So this means that the drive-in is important. It's important that it works. We've already laid off 70% of our staff. We will have a team of like 4 plus a couple of contractors who are paid for through Granite Slate Creative BC and they're fully covered. So, our hope is that that's going to work well. Our fundraising efforts right now span operational support, specific program support, grant applications, and then of course our capital grant applications, major gift requests, and talking with various levels of government beyond our local one to see if there's other funding out there for us. But it's a lot that we have to do, but I take solace in the fact we've done it before. There's something said for that. We're not panicking because we all kind of know what this looks like. We've done it. And, we've never had the solvency equation that's going to be offered by the 3-speed model, but we've always found a way. So, all that said, if you know of any funds or opportunities, you can pass on my way. Again, I'd be grateful. And that's really all I had to say today. So, are there any questions? I'd love to chat some more.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Eleanor. Questions?
Weren't you going to ask us a skill testing question?
Oh, yeah. Did anybody learn anything new? Were there any areas? And I'm sorry, I just realized how far I went for time. My apologies.
I learned a lot.
I think you're supposed to say what you learned. Fair enough.
Those skill testing questions are yes. No, I've got the list here. I didn't know 2% of it.
Go ahead, Joe.
Well, so just through Eleanor, I think what it does show is how these things actually, we're talking about what the word recreation actually means.
Yeah.
And you can see here, how even there's facilitated, there is a reason to help facilitate some of the work that is done. Those are areas that we can't do, but provide flavor across the community. So the film camps and those kinds of things. We do camps, but we don't do that. And that helps. I love what your daughter your daughter said. But you know, like I can, that's part of the mix. And so I think hopefully for commission, and I know based upon our conversations over the last while, makes me realize like those partnerships that we need to somehow foster. We still don't do a very good job of it, but they're definitely there. The other piece, Eleanor, because I have a question that you asked me on Friday that I realize that I haven't gotten back to you, but the answer is yes, we're willing to work with you on the popcorn issue.
Oh,
Popcorn game.
fabulous, thank you.
So the answer is yes. We've been distracted by a capital project issue this week. So I haven't gotten back to you, but the answer is
Fantastic.
yes. I've just got to find, and I will today let you know the best person to have that conversation with.
Really appreciate that,
Yeah.
thank you.
And I should also say that, in terms of things like camps and such, one of the things that I've offered like tumbleweeds in the past is, or the summer camps that happen at Downtown Berlin is like, if you have a rainy day and nothing to what to do with these kids, like, let us know and let's find a way for us to be able to do screenings. You know, the theater's always been available. I know the youth center has used the shoebox a bit for screenings for after school stuff recently. Like, there's lots of ways to intersect, and of course, this guy's the one that we're content.
But Eleanor, I learned quite a bit as well. There's a lot of conversations and discussions that I've been in over the last year and a half with regards to the silos that each of our nonprofits seem to be operating inside. And it's one of the things that Nelson Regional Sports Council is working hard to try and take those silos down so that individual groups aren't remaking the wheel and working together, because we are all community based. And I see several opportunities with regards to what I said to you before the meeting started, which was, and we should be working together. So if you have something or a link or something that can come onto our webpage, most definitely. The other piece is that with regards to the sports side of things, every single sporting group in our community is looking for different ways to raise funds. And I don't know how many of them reach out to you on a regular basis,
Yeah.
but if there's things that we can coordinate when we're having groups like the Creaky Swim Club had a swim meet, brought in 8 teams from all over the region, and they were wondering what they were gonna do at night, and there would be an opportunity to do a joint fundraiser with you and the swim club. Same with soccer, same with minor hockey. There's a number of different ways that we can work in unison that we should be, and I don't think we are, and there's an opportunity for it.
Film fundraisers are a really quick way to make a lot of money if you have a good community, and like you see that with the biking group, like when they bring in Top Rock or the climbing center as well, like if they bring in films, they're sold out. And we deliver a box office, sometimes it's like $3,500 a night.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's pretty extraordinary. We do keep the concession, though, I'll let you bring in your concession.
No, I'm just thinking of different ways to get that out to
Yeah.
sporting groups.
And I didn't mention much about that, but like, if we want a real sellout at any given time, all we need to do is put on a ski film, like a new one. But they sell out, sport films sell out here in this community. The problem is there isn't a lot of new content every year. And we also try to make sure that it's reserved to a degree for those sports entities that are doing their own fundraising. So we bring them in as rentals through those companies instead of presenting them ourselves. Truthfully, we leave a lot of money on the table when we do that, because we could do it ourselves and make that same money, but we've really tried to leave an element.
Yeah, there's definitely ways we can work together. for sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, I've learned a lot because I didn't realize the spectrum of what you guys are involved in. It's interesting. And one of the things you brought up was film location. Well, as you know, everybody in this community holds about 3 hats. And I'm part of the chair of the Heritage Committee over in Belfast.
Oh,
And we have a 1892 church. Is that something like that appropriate?
yeah, we should absolutely have somebody come out and see you about that. And knowing also that being a film location, it isn't simply like they come in and film, they really do take something over. So it's worthwhile people understanding that like when you offer up a location, you're kind of like giving it up until they're done.
Yeah, I work in the industry, so I'm.
Yes, you know, you totally understand. No, absolutely. And I think that that's going to be a big part in the next couple of years, is really trying to make sure that location library is robust. Because the more locations like your old church that we have there, the more potential we have for all sorts of onto the yard. I will also say, one of the pieces that I'm concerned about as we get into this, will be a lovely problem to have, is like Fort Langley is shut down to film now. They've had so many movies of the week through Hallmark done there that the downtown businesses are done. You know, so I'm thinking about like, right, nice problem to have. But I'm really thinking also about like, what kind of things do we want to bring to our communities? How do we want our communities to be influenced or impacted by film projects? Is it at all costs or is it at some cost? And so part of this also has to do with getting more acquainted with the individual communities about what they want and helping them to kind of build their own checklists and guidelines about what it is that they'll tolerate, what they're excited about, what they need want to see. So that'll all come, I think, in the next couple of years as well. But we're really trying to be cognizant of that because, you know, for better or for worse, we do think a little differently in the communities than in a lot of other places.
Yeah, just one other comment, and that is, I guess the people that know me, I'm a bit of a collector.
Order?
No, I'm trying to keep away from the orders. But I have the protection from the Great Creek Drive-In. I also have 2 theater marquees.
You do.
So I just have let you know that if you're interested in use for those, let me know.
You know what, we might have a use for either marquee or 2 right now. Although I am so tired of the marquee gremlins changing our words. So tired of it.
Sorry, that's been for
Ever.
yeah, just so you know.
And sometimes they're so creative and other times you're like, that doesn't even make sense. It's just dirty, you know, but yeah, no, I actually, I might be able to use your marquees. But we don't have anywhere to put up what we're showing the drive-in right now. And we've really struggled with it over at Shoebox as well. And the Pentecosts who own the building have said that we could actually put a marquee on the side of that building if we wanted to. We just don't have one. So depending on how big they are, we can have a chat.
Sure.
That'd be great. I have to ask you, is the Great Creek Drive-In, camera, or projector, is it a 35mm or? Is it real to real?
It's an arc projector.
Okay, I don't know.
You know what that is?
No, I don't think so.
So instead of a light bulb, it's like a welding, 2 arcs coming together.
Amazing.
It's like the drive, that's what these Starlight used to be as well.
Very cool. I'll get Jason in touch with you. You probably, for no other reason, would love to just kind of nerd out on this.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Certainly gave a little bit of time for this. I think it's important, of course, to let these opportunities for cross-pollination between the non-traditional sports and recreation side, which has been a lot of the conversation at this table over the last number of years. So thank you so much, Eleanor. I learned a few things. I've got studies written down. Studis.
Like, let's.
There's a little box covering part of it, so I can spell
Yeah.
Studis. Let's do this. I also really appreciate, and something from maybe Cheryl's newsletter, the whole getting the civic membership and then being able to just have as many DVDs as you would like over the course of the year. It seems like a great value for people that are outside of the internet connection. That's just a benefit.
It's amazing. You know who one of our greatest frequent flyers is Jesse Pinheiro. And he told me, he's like, this is amazing. Like, how's all my streaming? Like, you know, he and his wife are in there all the time. They rent the space. He's totally a frequent flyer.
I know, I love it. It's the non-streaming store.
The non-streaming store. We should rebrand as that.
Okay, excellent.
The
Thank you so
actual
much.
streaming store, isn't it?
Thank you so much, Eleanor. I hope you guys will continue to plug in and check in on us and see what we're doing once in a while.
And you know,
We will do the same.
I guess I will leave you with one thing, which is, you know, as we get into this process with like the planning for the whole campus, for the rec campus. Sorry, say that one. It's not a civic center campus, what's it called?
The long-term recreation campus review.
Okay, so yes. We would just really love to be part of it. And I tried to kind of make that point at the beginning that we're not a user as much as we are like a fixture. You know, we're about to invest $4.5 million into this facility. We'd really love to be part of a conversation about how the project develops. And at some point or another, I would really love to have a longer conversation about
the dance umbrella space and how that's actually an extension of our backstage.
Mhm.
It's really important. We have the benefit of Danielle being really open to opening that door, letting us use it as a backstage when we needed to, and vice versa, we also want a stage available for her. But in terms of how the building is developed in the future, it's actually a really important thing to put so back together in some ways, so.
I think it's interesting because the Civic Center, of course, embodies an older strategy of culture and recreation and community and hockey and like the whole facility was how predating all of this structure that we have now is how we looked at delivering that benefit to the community
Yeah.
in this district.
And there was method to the madness, we just don't necessarily have all our notes anymore.
Kate, Jen, did I miss you at all for questions? No, they're good. Excellent.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
and thank you for a little bit more time, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Have a great day.
It was fascinating. Okay, that moves us on to a bit of a conversation on the Nelson Regional Sports Council request for a permanent seat at the commission table. We've had a year of piloting. Am I missing something? No. I have an older version of the agenda. Or I don't. Okay, sorry. The Nelson District. I slept well and everything. So 7.1, the Nelson District Arts Council mural proposal. So we had an email go around from Sydney Black, the Executive Director of Nelson District Arts Council, a mural proposal on the back of the Nelson District Community Complex. There was a vote that happened over the email, or an expression of support that happened over email, so we're formalizing that. Can I have a mover for the recommendation that Recommendation 5 approve the Nelson and District Art Council proposal to have a mural on the portion of the east facing wall of the Nelson and District Community Complex, which for all those who can think of that, when you go through the foyer, through the doors that go out the other side through that community room, there's a cinder block wall where there's some dumpsters and stuff that you can see when you drive in from Curling. So moved and seconded, Josh and then Newell, any discussion? Do you have your hand up for a second?
I have my hand up.
What's that? That was Kate's growly voice.
I have my hand up. Sorry, did you say there was a discussion in email?
There was an email asking with the proposal, saying if people wanted to go ahead with this.
There was an email with the proposal. Was there a discussion in the email?
There was a request for vote and the majority of the commission replied back saying they supported it.
Was that in a reply all? And is that how we do it? We do requests for votes in email?
In this scenario, Eleanor or Sydney needed to continue on with the hiring, so there was a time sensitivity. So we said that she could circulate the request, and if people were generally in support, we would give her tentative permission and formalize it today.
Yeah, so through the chair, I can just, so Katie, it was last week and that the email went out, so I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday of last week. And what it said is just general indication of if there's support. You're doing a formal approval right now. But as Keith noted, it was because the Nelson, unfortunately what happened is the Nelson Arts Council missed the April meeting, getting their stuff to us. So it pushed it to this meeting, but in order for them to arrange the work, she just needed to know that it was generally supported and most likely to be supported at this meeting, so she could start the process as Keith said.
So I have the email from May 21st. It said, please find attached the proposal. I don't recall a bunch of reply alls on that email. Was there a bunch of reply alls where people said, yes, I support this?
There were three for sure.
They were reply alls?
I don't know, sorry.
Janice's was.
Okay.
Commissioner Morris, and I thought mine was
But you're doing the
the
vote.
chair.
You're
Yeah.
doing, if you're doing the
I
vote right.
understand that. I heard what the chair said, which is we kind of have semi-approval via email. And I want to confirm that because I'm pretty diligent on my emails. And that is not something that I was aware of. And I want to be cautious about getting semi-approval in emails.
Of course.
Thanks.
I also approved it, but I did not reply all, so as not to push the table one way or another way on the issue.
Just-
Okay,
But let's just be cautious of process in the future, please.
it's a very rare, yeah, 100%, it's a very rare thing. We wouldn't do it on anything much more substantive than this. Okay, we good? And go back in time, so. Are there any other discussion on the proposal itself, on the mural, on the location? Okay, any objections? Okay, the motion is carried. Maybe something we want to refer to the procedural bylaw review? Like, maybe there needs to be something that's laid out, like even just the reply all conversation, I would not necessarily.
Yeah, through the chair, the reason that the email was worded in the way it was not to imply that it was approval. It was just to imply that I could talk to Sydney about the arrangements. So it said, I can't remember the wording that we used, but it was not to predetermine what the decision at this table was. Because we're, in the past, Josh may be more familiar because it's way in the past, but we used to do even by phoning each and every commissioner. Things that came up that were of an urgent nature. But in this case, that wasn't what we were attempting to do, was just to get an indication that I could work with Sydney to make the arrangements to start the process.
And I think just what I heard from this conversation alone was more the reflection back of when we hit a quorum. So
Yeah,
whether we were telling every commissioner to reply so every commissioner could see it, or that there was some sort of email that would go out once we had a majority.
Yeah.
It's not more of a notice, right, Kate? Sure,
Yeah,
and I
just
agree
be
with that.
careful of process.
Yeah.
We wouldn't want to set a precedent that things get semi-pre-approved by email where some people replied and some people replied all.
So that's the part of the procedure where I might be like, when
It's just not gonna be in the procedure. It won't be in the procedure bylaw. I don't expect this to come up very often.
okay,
This is the first thing.
this is the first time this commission's done.
Yeah.
I'm going to semi-approve pizza at the in-person meetings by a reply all.
Yeah, approved. I'm the biggest guy, so that carries more weight in this conversation. Pizza. Okay, are we good to move on? So the next conversation is the Nelson Regional Sports Council request for a permanent seat at the commission table. I want to give a little bit of space to just reflect on the last year of the piloting that we've had and see where the discussion goes. So I might pass it to Tom first.
We normally, for these kind of requests, would get a staff report. Some kind, don't know, even know what that would look like, but. Yeah,
Through the chair, you can do a direction to staff or me or. That's fine. If that's what you'd like.
don't move.
Okay,
Doesn't stop conversation.
Yeah, but
It's
it's what we'll-
concept, but it's about how
Do you
to
wanna-
make the decision.
sure, let's frame it. Do we have a seconder? Seconded for discussion. Okay.
So I'll speak on the motion. I actually don't, I as a commissioner don't know about the long-term implications of actually embedding it as part of our processes. And that's no reflection on the past year in the pilot. And I'd like professionals, staff to reflect on it and see what comes back from that kind of perspective.
Anyway, a lot more interested people are interested views around the table. It got to the point at one point where it was a coffee clutch. Everyone was talking, it was a business thing, it was not a business meeting. And we had to change it because it was just dysfunctional. And there was a lot of people on that committee, not necessarily elected people, but it was dysfunctional when too many people were there. So that's a fact I raised.
Do we get to say anything?
I was just giving a preference to the elected to the table. So seeing no other comments, Dave, go ahead.
So in review of this, going to the staff, which is really what the Nelson Regional Sports Council is trying to be, that liaison from the staff to the commission, from the user groups, so that there is the opportunity for discussion. Because the reason that we asked to be part of this commission was to offer that transparency, to offer that conduit, to tear down the silos between all of the nonprofits, which are operating as entities onto themselves, but understanding that those people are bringing value to the community, which are the people that elect the commission. Staff portion is where the disconnect has come in. And that's why this became an entity of necessity. So for community engagement, I've heard in several of the meetings about who will be able to attend from the commission side of things, because each of you have responsibilities that become overwhelming, and you're involved in a lot of committees, and there's opportunities for the Nelson Regional Sports Council to act as an arm of transparency and communication from the commission for things that you might not think are that important, but are to the community and the user. So those are the pieces that we are looking to be a coordinated approach, to work with the community engagement process to offer better transparency. And a perfect example would be something as visual as the Nelson Civic Theater. And each one of the people at this table found something new from them, because they're working as an entity onto themselves, and there's nobody to coordinate that and bring it into the other nonprofit groups. So there's an opportunity here to engage. We're not asking to be someone who's making the decisions. We want to be able to communicate as eyes and ears for the nonprofits in the community on behalf of the commission, the regional district, and the city. And that's what we're looking for. That's all we've asked for all along, is to be able to cast a voice and communicate back what we're finding.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Tom.
Mental.
Go ahead, Tom.
Thank you. Ask Joe a question without. Two things. I think our procedure process could be improved from the RDC perspective in regard to how we allow delegations and questions on agenda items. Many councils say you can talk 5 minutes on any issue when it arises on the agenda, as opposed to at the end making a comment, which is very limiting in getting feedback as we discuss an agenda item. So in Vancouver, you just sign up and you say you get 5 minutes to talk on this agenda item at the council. So your attendance, or the Sports Council's attendance here, kind of allows us to get feedback on agenda items from someone out in public that represents a group. That's one thing that I support in regard to this. One of the things I've noticed is that periodically we hear from a representative group that may or may not be fully representative of the thing we're trying to have representation of. No disrespect to the sports council. So if we embed this as a sports council thing and that organization over time evolves into a thing that isn't speaking full people, then we've eliminated a group and then we'll get a second or third request for more representation at the table. So that's why I just want a little more reflection, maybe staff reflection on it. So it's not a disagreement, it's just long-term commitment. Wonderful. So that's my supplement.
Okay, and then I'm going to take us to Mayor Morrison. Get your hand up.
Thanks. I wasn't too sure you could see my hand up. I will get it down here. I have a couple of questions and I think they're maybe to Dave or maybe to staff. No, maybe probably to Dave. I'm curious as to the Nelson Regional Sports Council. Are you representing all groups? Are you having regular meetings? How often are your meetings? Is it possible for those of us who sit on the commission to maybe come and attend one of your meetings at some point just to listen to the discussions? And like I say, are all groups represented on the sports council? Is it individuals or is it sort of just are there other interested parties besides just users there? Like, do you have a member of the just general community on there that isn't a particular sport user? So that's one question that I have, which is kind of a maybe big question, and then this is maybe to staff, and maybe this is where the request of Commissioner Newell is that if the decision is to sort of make permanent representation, which of course would change the terms of reference, but would this be a non-voting seat at the table? So that's my 2 cents for right now. Thanks.
To answer your questions, Mayor Morrison, we meet on a monthly basis, but we normally break June and July because 60 to 70% of the sports are in the throes of it. It's a group of volunteers. Currently, there are 5 active board members. Each one of them represents a different sport, so there is no community at large or non-sports based representation. Our AGM is open to the public and all members. Those that have submitted links to our webpage are the groups that have acknowledged the Nelson Regional Sports Council and its representation, so to speak, within the community at large. But we do work directly with as many nonprofits within the community. The meetings are open. And we would welcome anyone from the Direct 5 Commission to attend our meeting.
When's your next meeting?
I believe it is June 29th.
Okay. Yeah, taking anybody for that. Any other supplemental, any other question there? Okay.
I was going to say that, like, just to comment on,
Okay.
yeah, I got to go next because of the delay. Sorry, Director Newell.
No, I was learning.
I can see me behind you. It's weird. I just wanted to comment on Janice, a riff off of that. I think that the voting membership is established in a bylaw, so it's even more complex than terms of reference because I have all the bylaws. I always read through them. my understanding is the Recreation Commission, and the bylaws kind of overlap where like the later ones changed the first ones. And I've done a lot of reading on this. I don't think the later bylaws changed the responsibilities of the Rec Commission, which are set way back in where it's typed, like bylaw 838, I think. And the purpose of the Rec Commission is D1A is to empowers the commission to organize and conduct a recreation program. And then the rest of the stuff has to do with budgets and liabilities and surveys and that sort of thing. So just to be aware, from my understanding, and I know that I'm new, that's what the Rec Commission does. So I would be interested to know from the perspective of the Nelson Sports Council if you've been finding that attending and being present is giving you the voice this year in this pilot project that you had been hoping for?
The ability to understand where the Rec 5 Commission is coming from has been excellent as far as a learning piece to ask questions that weren't necessarily privy to prior to the discussions at this table. Going back and following up, like for example, on the campus and the facility of campuses. So when you look at the Rec 5 facility side of things, it seems to be only in the municipal side of things, but then there's other independent groups like the tennis club that fall outside of this, that go to school district. Then there is the folks at the climbing wall who worked for many years to try and get recognized facility space, but it ended up going into Selkirk College. The dialogue that I had with Selkirk College and their fitness side of things, which is a facility, but it's not recognized under the campus of facilities. But when we're looking at the whole community, we're only looking at the ones that fall under the bylaw that you're referring to. So there's independent groups out there that are offering groups space, but we're not, as the Rec 5 Commission is, they're outside of the box, so they're not recognized, but from a 40,000 foot view of the community side of things, they should be included. So that those pieces, so we learn about that. As far as a voice, we're trying to understand where we can be effective and the opportunities that come up on where we can support Rec 5. So for example, the first policy question was allocation. We went back to the 3 groups that said that they were feeling not heard, and the hard no's were hard no's, and there was no recourse for them. So we asked for clarity on what the recourse was. And at that point in time, the recourse was to do a follow-up to staff, include the chair of the Rec 5 Commission, and re-ask the questions so that it's not a dismissive piece. So that part of the policy and the voice and the question that we asked, we were effective in. So that's yes in some circumstances and no in others.
Right. So the Nelson Sports Council actually probably has more touch points in the community than Rec Commission number 5, because my understanding of Rec Commission number 5 is we're like confined to the one building plus a little tiny bit of the other building because the RDCK runs the operations of the civic arena. But the Nelson Sports Council has fingers in, like you said, lots of places, lots of spaces, lots of different groups. So we're a little bit more confined in terms of what we are governing versus your voice from a broader perspective of the community. So I would be cautious of unintentionally getting the Rec Commission involved in climbing gym conversations, for example. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. So because we have a bylaw, we have our budgets, we have our building, and and it doesn't stretch farther than that. This campus review, which is partly involved with the rec commission because that space is within the campus and it's a partnership with the city. Like this is one of our, it seems to me, the first times that we're branching out from that like one structure and the bylaw that this is where we live, this is where rec commission lives, where we're branching out and being like, hey, this is a recreation and cultural campus, you know, based on the definition of recreation, it includes the Nelson Civic Theater, for example. So I think that's like one of our first forays as a commission to go bigger and broader than what bylaw 838 it initially intended. And so I just want to be cautious that we're not overextending what our role is in the community. But I'm new as well.
Okay. Any other comments? Questions? Okay, thanks for all that, everybody. My observations, and I just want to touch on a few points that have been raised around the table. Having the relationship building and the attendance, I think, goes a long way at understanding both what, as Kate is saying, what we are working on, what the community is working on, and creates those opportunities to do some troubleshooting and some problem solving when we get those initial barriers. I think the attendance is by the first thing that's delivering value, right? We had to create some sort of social structure to elicit that on a regular basis. It's that you never know when something's going to come up through the course of the meeting. It may not show up on the agenda or may not be framed in the agenda in a way that people are like, oh, that's going to lead to X conversation. But having someone here, having those conversations has been helpful. This commission certainly has responsibilities laid out for the programming and services delivered throughout the district. Not that they all get delivered, but that we have a 40-foot view for our strategic planning and public engagement pieces and understanding what's going on with the campus of what is happening in the district in terms of recreation. So that is a big reason why Eleanor is one of many who have come through these doors in the last couple of years as we create those touch points and build those relationships with as many groups as possible that are impacted by the service we provide. And you know, Eleanor had to really took us a little further out of the box even still, but as we were saying earlier, it ties back to the roots of how recreation and culture were envisioned in this area nearly 85 years ago. That being said, the effectiveness of providing, and Tom touched on this earlier, the different ways we structure how we open up our business items for conversation. The courtesy of freedom of the floor, I think, is something that we will continue to provide for individuals that represent groups that come forward and representing as many groups as they have. That piece, I don't necessarily see it as something we would take away under this chairship anyway. When people want to talk things, that effectively addresses many of the pieces that were raised when it comes to how we have dialogue, how we share information, how we attend each other's meetings, so we know what people are doing. But again, it may not necessarily make sense that there is a change to the bylaw and there's voting that's brought in or all of those other pieces. It might make more sense to keep those separate but informed, to keep us doing our own thing, but extending courtesies on both sides, right? So there are pieces here, and I don't think we necessarily need to rush to a report. But if that's the will of the commission, I would say I want to still see people attending this meeting, showing up, asking for freedom of the floor, talking to the chair ahead of time, and continuing to have the dialogue before I would necessarily say we need to change the bylaw and change the entire structure of governance. What we're really just trying to do is create an environment where we can have some free-form conversation to a certain degree and build through whatever challenges and conflicts we might have to ensure that you're able to do what you need to do and your use groups can get what they need, and we can also stay within our box and not get sucked into every craft, basketball court that anybody wants to conceive of. It happens, and there's always pressure for it. Go ahead, Tom.
Clarify, but if I had to make for the chair,
Yeah.
if if I had to make that motion and you said what you said, you would have said, I wonder, if you would have said, no, not permanent, continue status quo. Is that what you're saying? Because I'll remove my motion and keep status quo for a while. I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah, no,
what
like,
you're actually saying.
well, and just listening to the conversation, I am of the mind, what we are doing here doesn't need drastic bylaw changes and policy changes. What we need here is people to show up to every meeting, to have a conversation, and to offer the courtesies to continue those dialogue. And so I think,
And I think to feel that at no point in time did the Nelson Regional Sports Council say they wanted a vote. What they asked for was a seat at the table for the discussion. And that was awarded to us on a preliminary basis for 1 year. And I've never been involved in anything like this, so I can only speak from a personal standpoint. I believe that the questions and the dialogue that we as a group brought forward of value. I believe that the follow-up piece and the questions of clarity that we asked brought some formal or extended discussion on them, and we were able to communicate that back. What we're currently doing is just that. And if that remains the way we proceed and we just want a voice at the table and to be invited to that table and communicate it back. At no point in time did we ask for bylaw changes. At no point in time did we ask for a vote. If it turns out to be something that becomes an issue community-wide, where it becomes antagonistic, then we'll leave that to the individual group, because our job, as we see it, is to communicate what we hear and what we see at this discussion to those that it's going to impact directly. And that is it. So if this is looking at bylaw change, not what we're interested in. We're interested in the discussion and being involved in the discussion. That's it.
okay, well, it kind of sounds like everyone's pretty comfortable with just being courteous and having lots of discussion and being at the table to hear what the conversations are, which is what we're doing now. So we may defeat this motion or it may be withdrawn.
Well, if the requester said, hey, can we just keep going for a while? Then I would remove the motion. But it was the request for the permanent that I was
Yeah,
responding.
it's revisit from last year.
But if they said, hey, it's okay, just keep going. But I understand what you were saying, a year's coming up. and you
Yeah.
Wanted some.
We just wanted some direction and clarity with regard to where do we stand? What do I report back to our board? Is this something that we will continue to add to our meeting agenda? On the freedom of the floor piece, if there's something on your agenda that we need to bring an individual group into, which to date has not taken place, we would notify you of the agenda and say, this is something that's being discussed. May we bring X group in for our freedom of the floor discussion?
I think that, yeah, we'll cross that bridge. I'm not quite sure the implications of having delegations specifically on business items, but having the representative that we have being sent, having the freedom of floor to bring those discussions is still something we're doing now. So I like the idea of the status quo. If you're comfortable continuing on in this direction, I think that makes sense. So do you want to pull the motion?
Yeah, I'll withdraw my motion at the seconder, so.
Yeah, and Kate, sorry, I saw a hand and then I had one away.
Yeah, I just was, it's a little bit difficult to hear, but to me, there was a suggestion at the beginning. It sounds to me like the Nelson and District Sports Council, again, has more touch points in the community than the Rec Commission. And to me, it seems like the reverse should be true, that the Rec Commission should be sitting at that table, because it's just like a little component of the massive community touch points that the Nelson and District Sports Council has. However, once we're done this campus, I think we need to look at who is at the table at the rec commission. But again, that's a bylaw piece. But so I think it's important to have this conversation kind of simmering, and we need to start it now because everyone knows that changes take a long, long time, especially when you're talking about governance. But as we look at what does the rec commission do, what is the campus, what is recreation in Nelson and district, then how do we make sure that the governance piece and the user group piece and the community piece are all interconnected and the communication lines are clear, open, and fair.
And so that sounded a lot like whatever our master plan update or strategic master plan update would look like. Do you have any sense of where that is on the timeline?
It's through the church, it's not in right now, it's this process
That will be going on for
Yeah.
a while. That's probably not until the next term, just to be forthright, but yeah, renewing our 10-year master planning process, which is probably now at year 12. Yeah. But I'm familiar with 10-year master plans that are 15 years old. But just so you're aware, right? That would be a master planning process. I think it's a good bit of reflection to be having at that time. Okay, the motion is withdrawn with no prejudice to our esteemed representative from the Regional Sports Council. We really appreciate your message back to be that we appreciate the conversation. We want to have the dialogue and we want to continue on with the status quo and continue to solve problems together. Perfect. That'd be the message I would take back. That moves us on to public time. Observer. Anything to say? Who else we got on there? Someone else is. Okay. Anyone from the public who would like to ask any questions? Hearing none, our next meeting will be on July 31st at 9 a.m. And Dave, do you want to repeat when the next Regional Sports Council meeting is?
I'll send the invite out to,
End of June, right?
I believe it's the end of June.
Okay, sounds good. Is there anything else? Can I have a mover to adjourn? So move. Tom?
Don't need a second.
Okay, don't need a seconder. Don, thank you. Appreciate it.
You do get one. Yeah.
All in favor? Just let me get this. Future, the chair will just be AI.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, perfect. So we are going into a workshop. So observer, if you could hang up, or you will do that from our end.
Yeah, so Dave, we've got the workshop.
That's fine.
We appreciate your time, but
Just didn't want to stand up and block the screen.
yeah.
My big small day, hey, how's it going?
I don't think you actually block Kate, it's just that Kate gets you block Kate seeing Kate.
Maybe. Kate, I want you to screenshot this T-Rex thing you're doing so that that's your hold.
You actually have the power to not make me be Big Brother on the wall. You could put somebody else as pinned if you want.